So I found your page and I was like, I need to have her on and just like get all the clarity in the world. And I feel like a lot of my listeners are going to really enjoy this episode and just like learn a lot from you. So
Well, thank
I'm
you.
really
I
excited.
love your podcast. I was listening to it before I came on, and you just are such a natural. You have such a way with your guests, and I'm just really excited for it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. So if you want to just give everyone a rundown of like who you are, what exactly you do, and how you got started, I feel like that'd be a great place to kick things off.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Julia. I'm a self-love coach and also an anxiety coach. And I help women who struggle with their self-worth, not feeling good enough, self-doubt, those insecurities, because I've been there. And I've incorporated a lot of the things I've learned on my own journey with my clients. But I think it is just something that us women go through is this figuring out, society tells us who we're supposed to be and fitting these molds. And then at some point we realize, well, who am I really? Like, what is it that I stand for? And how do I see myself? Because for so long, my idea of myself was reflected based on other people's opinions and their perceptions rather than who I was truly. So I definitely incorporate a lot of that and spirituality too in my practice. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
So, do you think you got started with the actual coaching of things just because you felt like you went through so much on your own that you wish you had someone to go to? Or is that like what really like sparked that?
Absolutely. I think I always was looking for like a mentor. And a lot of my clients have been younger too. So I can, I say I'm like their fairy godmother and they're like Cinderella and just really reminding them of the beauty and the magnificence within them. But yeah, that was definitely part of it. I started my coaching business right during the pandemic. I'd gotten my teaching credential. I was going to be a high school history teacher. And then, everything just kind of was put on hold. And starting my business, I was able to connect with so many amazing women from around the world who'd been through or who were going through what I'd been through. So I was able to kind of guide them and say, like, it's okay, you're feeling this way, you're not alone. And yeah, I would definitely say it was my own personal struggles that I'd been through in my 20s that kind of got me to where I am today.
That's awesome. And that's so great that you chose to like help others because of that? Um,
Oh, I think a lot of people do because they know firsthand.
right,
Yeah,
right.
they've been
Yeah,
through
and I
it.
feel like you're more valuable like going through everything you went through, you're able to like use your experiences to help other people. We were kind of saying earlier how like so I'm 24 and all of my friends are in this I feel like pivotal like we're all about to turn 25, which is that like
Uh-huh.
scary crucial number for whatever reason. It's just like a terrifying age. I don't know why. It's like everyone sort of freaks out a little bit and they kind of question like, okay, who am I now? What am I doing what I want to be doing for work? Am I living where I want to live? Do
Mm.
I have a relation? Am I in a relationship? What is my dating life? Like there are so many questions right now that like for some reason all like flutter up. I don't know what it is about 25, but so because of that, I've had so many conversations with my friends just about all of that and
Mm.
sort of like everyone has a different battle or something that they're really like struggling with and everyone is really trying to improve like at least one aspect of that of their life um
Yes.
and I feel like it's a tricky time. Do you have just like any like overarching advice just for like coming up to 25 and like being in your 20s just in general just before we get into all the like nitty gritty?
Of course. Yeah, I was thinking, I remember turning 25 and when you turn 30, that's like the big one. I don't know why. It's like, I remember being like 25 and I felt like, oh, I still have this time. But then 30 was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I actually, I'm 35. And once I um, went into my 30s, I loved myself more than when I was in my 20s because I was way, way behind. I feel like, this generation, they can start earlier. They can love themselves in their 20s. They don't have to go through all of that heartbreak and comparisons and all of the things that I went through. But I think the big thing I would say would be to follow your bliss. For so long, I was trying to do what I thought other people, wanted me to do or make them happy. To have this career, I had these ideas of who I was supposed to be, and then I ended up really realizing I love teaching, and I got my teaching credential. So I would say if there's something that you like to do, this is the time to do it. It's like follow that dream, follow that, goal or that thing that you want to do that people are saying, oh, I don't know if, you should do that, or they have different ideas in mind for your life, because this is your life. And if you do something, there's a quote that said something like, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I did feel that way right before the pandemic. When I would teach, it's like it didn't feel like work.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like too, with our generation, I feel like maybe we are starting to realize that, you can really do whatever you want. And there's not that like, because I feel like with, the older generation, there's so many, like they just did jobs to do them. And because they were told they had to just get a job, and like,
Yes.
no
And how
matter,
much paid. Mhm.
right, no matter like if you're happy or you're not, like you need the paycheck, you need to pay for a house, you need this and this and this. And I feel like we're slowly starting to get out of that and just finding things that make us happy. And I do appreciate that about this generation, but there are just so many uncertainties with that too. So there's a lot of stressors with that. And something that like I have noticed, at least with myself, is going on social media. So the other thing with our generation is social media.
Yes.
And going on social media, it leads you down this like sometimes this black hole of like comparison. And
Of
I
course.
talk a
Mhm.
lot about this with my friends and just other people around. And I say like, you know, I love Instagram and I love social media, but there are some days where I'm like, God, like that made me sad, because there's so
Oh,
many people
yeah.
that look, stunning, and maybe people are getting married, maybe people are getting pregnant, and then you start to think, well, I'm not, you know?
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
so what could you say to just like comparison in general, and how do you like really handle not going down that black hole?
That's a great question, because that was something I was going to also talk about, is the relationships aspect, like being single in
Yeah.
your 20s or your 30s. Well, first I was going to say that you're just gorgeous. There's no one prettier on Instagram than you. So you should never feel bad about yourself. Um, but it is hard, because I've done that with my body, at comparing myself, and in relationships. And I used to always put that being in a relationship on a pedestal. Not that I don't think it's a great thing, but I was engaged before, and everyone was like, oh, wow. Like, you have the ring, and everyone's like, this is so amazing. I'm so happy for you. And I was actually miserable, but Instagram would have told you a totally different story.
Wow. Yep.
But you don't always know. I'm single right now. I'm so much happier, because if it's not the right person, and a lot of times it's not, you'd rather be single or alone. And it really gives you that time, I would say, to figure out who you are and what you want. And now I see people that, got married and have kids, and they're divorced, and they have all sorts of other, issues and things in their life, that I'm really glad that if I hadn't done the work, kind of the inner work, and figured out who I am and the type of relationship I'm looking for. So I would definitely say you don't know what someone else's life is. It's just a highlight reel, and even that can be really fake. And just to focus really on what makes you happy, and that might be taking breaks from social media too, or following pages that make you feel good and uplifted. I don't follow any anymore that are like, just models and things like that, because I'm always
Right.
comparing my body, and it's not conducive to the kind of life that I want to live and the things I want to focus on. So yeah, I would, you got to quit it early. If you can,
Yeah.
the comparison game. But it's not easy, and I get caught up in it sometimes too.
I love your point about like, yes, they may be married, but what if they're, you don't really know what's going on. And, there are so many times where people will break up and you're thinking, no, not
Yeah.
them. What? And I feel like it's so true. Like you don't really know what's going on behind that social media page. And I think it's a great point to say, like, it's a lot better to just focus on you regardless of what's going on around you, because at the end of the day, like you're stuck with yourself. And if you're single, it doesn't really matter as long as like you really are happy with what you have. And I feel like when you're your happiest, that's when things are attracted to you. Like
Yes.
things come to you when you are completely yourself and like loving life on your own. And I feel like there's a lot of women out there that really struggle with being on their own. Like there's like there's a constant feeling of like, I need to have somebody, regardless if I'm like dating them. Like, I just want to be talking to somebody like all the
Yes,
time
I did too.
to
Mhm.
feel validated or something because I am alone. Like, what would you say to that? Because I feel like there are so many friends that I have that are talking to people, texting people or dating people just to do it because they're lonely and and they're sad and like people find comfort in other people.
Mhm.
Um, what would you say to that?
Well, I've been kind of on both extremes. So I can totally, that's a great question. I can totally relate to that. And I think it's hard, especially in our society, because so much of our worth is based off of, being in a relationship with someone. I mean, we change our names when we get married. I mean, it's just, we're
Right.
so, and there's nothing necessarily wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's a part of our identity. And if we become too engulfed, I don't think that's necessarily healthy. It should be an equal partnership. And I would say it's normal to want a relationship and to want love. We're human beings. We are, designed for connection, and that's a beautiful thing. But at some point, and this has happened to me and other, people that I know, that they get so enmeshed in that person. And it's kind of a distraction, really. It's like I was trying to run away from myself. I couldn't just sit with me. I was like, oh, tell me I'm beautiful. Tell me I'm this. Tell me who I am. I don't know who I am. If you know who you are, then you're going to attract someone who's an equal and on your level. And you're not going to be settling for, like I've done, toxic relationships, narcissists, abusive relationships. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical, it can be emotional. There's neglect. There's all sorts of things that we have been, just programmed to put up with because, oh, well, you're in a relationship. So that's all that matters. Well, is it a good relationship? That's the question. But I
Yeah.
think going back to the couples that we see on Instagram, some of them may be happy, some aren't. For me, it's like I wish them the best, but any relationship, there's going to be struggles and there's going to be, conflict, and no one has it perfect. I think that was the biggest lesson. Is I thought some people had perfect lives, and I've learned that
Mhm.
we all go through stuff. So don't believe everything you see on Instagram.
No, I think that's the biggest lesson today. Don't
Yes.
trust what you see on Instagram. Um, no, and I totally agree. And I feel like it's tough too when, you're seeking validation in other people. And I feel like even if you are talking to somebody or dating somebody for that reason, like you're ultimately not really getting everything you need. I feel like you're still lacking because you're not fully like loving yourself. Like you can get all the compliments in the world from that person or get all the attention, but it's not necessarily good attention. And then sometimes you still feel sad. So I feel like
Yeah.
what I really like about how, your Instagram was what really drew me into you because I feel like your page is everything that like, me and my friends need is finding that like self-love. So like how can you I feel like self-love is also tough. It's like such a not overused, but it's like sometimes people don't understand fully what self-love is.
It's a cliche,
Um
yeah, and just, yeah, it
so
gets overused. Mhm.
right. So what could you say just about self-love and like what are the steps that like we can do to get to that point?
That's a wonderful question. And something I was going to say really quick before I forget was that when I was, younger, I would always ask, like when I was dating someone, like, am I good enough for this person? So now what I ask is this person good enough for
Good
me?
enough
So
for
any of your
me. Yeah.
listeners, please don't doubt your worth. I mean, it's especially early on, there's a lot of anxiety, like in early relationships, and there's triggers. And like if someone doesn't call right away or they don't text you back, yeah. And it's just, it can, really, um, get you like feeling like, well, maybe I'm not good enough for this person, but asking yourself, like, hey, like, do they have the qualities I'm looking for? Like, what's their character like? Those kinds of things, because all of the other things are just the superficial things will fade away. So I was going to say that, but in terms of self love, I think there is kind of a misconception that it is self care in a sense that it's like getting a Starbucks, going to the
Yeah.
salon, all of those things, which is great. But I think of self love is that you are loving yourself unconditionally, no matter what anyone says to you or does to you, and that it's really the sense of your inherent worth. And it's not dependent on other people's opinion, even friends and family, that you still, who you are, and we're all flawed people. We make mistakes, but we love ourselves through it. And for me, self-love, it got to the point where I was like, okay, it's having compassion for myself if I'm having a bad hair day or things aren't going well, or, self-love, I think, is seeing your ex on social media with his new girlfriend and not letting it threaten your self-worth and questioning yourself. Was I good enough for this person? And I'm a really big fan of the work of Dr. Kristen Neff. She talks a lot about self-compassion. And I feel like self-love would be remiss without talking about that, because it's not just like, oh, I love myself. It's really giving yourself that compassion and grace when you are suffering and struggling, as we all do because we're human beings. Those are some of the things that in my journey has helped me, rather than I just love myself because things are going well. I mean, can I still give myself love when it's not? And maybe I'm feeling some self-loathing.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think about.
That's so interesting. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think when we're in those times of like self-doubt or just loneliness or sadness, like that, at least for me, I'll speak personally, like when I am in those moods or in those like mindsets, I get almost more upset with myself that I'm in those mindsets. I'm like, how did I get here? What am I doing? And I just get angry, and that does not help me get out of it. So, I like that you said like have compassion and grace for yourself, because like that, I think that those feelings are obviously those are normal feelings to have. And, yeah, I like that you said that. That's awesome.
Well, I think it's with anything, what we resist persists. And it's hard when you're in those moments, like especially, feelings that we're not supposed to have, because,
Right.
and I use air quotes because I think of the emotions and feelings as like colors on a spectrum, really, that we need all of them. It's just how we use them. Even something like anger can be a good thing if you see a social injustice. It's how we're looking at it. But a lot of times, like for me, when I would feel anger, shame, sadness, insecurity, envy, I would get really like on myself and be like, well, you shouldn't be feeling this way. And like you said, it makes it so much worse. So if
Yeah.
you can just, it's like riding a wave. It's gonna go. It's just like clouds in the sky. You just have to kind of stay with yourself, just let it pass. It always does. But if you start overthinking it, I think it can make it much harder, because then it becomes part of you. That you have to think of yourself as, I am this being experiencing these feelings, that not that I am these feelings. We have to not identify with the different emotions we experience.
Yeah. So I have a question just about like, I guess getting to this point of self-love, but getting there in a healthy way, and like the steps that we should take in order to get to that point. So just like finding compassion for yourself, and not comparing yourself to other people and things like that. What are some of just like the biggest things that we could do to get us to that point?
Well, there's so many different things. For me, a big part of it was accepting and embracing all the parts of myself and not compartmentalizing, because I think we tend to do that. And I do speak on mental health a lot. I've experienced anxiety for 20 plus years. And for me, I was always trying to hide that and act like, oh, these perfectionist tendencies would come through. I'd act like everything's fine. I'm totally like easygoing, and not really actually realizing that that makes me more relatable, and I actually would have deeper connections when I was being vulnerable, because I wasn't showing people the true me. So I feel like a lot of times we do that. And I'm a really big fan of the work of Brene Brown, and she's also spoken on that people that are perfectionists, people tend to actually not like them as much, which is the irony, because those are the people that are really feeling like insecure, and they want people to like them, they want to feel accepted. And for so long I did want to, because I've been bullied in middle school, and I wanted to come off to the world as a certain type of person. And once I realized that you have to that there is courage in that vulnerability and just accepting who you are. And it's like warts and all. But then when you do that, it gives other people the opportunity to love all of themselves too. So that has been huge. And also just honoring your needs, whatever they might be. Setting boundaries is really, really big. If following your intuition, and at the end of the day, just being your own best friend, even if you screw up or you make a mistake, being like, hey, I know things didn't go the way we wanted it to, but I'm here for you. I love you. And tomorrow's going to be better.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So you were describing yourself there, but I felt like you were describing me with the, trying to put on the face of like, oh my gosh, like everything's good all the time and like not really talking about like what was actually bothering me. And then I, for me, I kind of came out of that. And when I did open up to people, I felt way better because I feel like it's really important to talk about what you're feeling.
Yeah.
It always like looking back in hindsight's 2020, but looking back and seeing the person that I used to be, which was the put on the face, I'm okay. Nothing's going wrong in my life.
Sure.
Everything's great. I was probably the saddest I've ever been.
Wow.
Because I wasn't talking to people and like telling anyone like how I truly was feeling. And so
Mhm.
I felt more alone in that. And I didn't really know how to grapple and like deal with the emotions that I was feeling. And I just felt like, well, maybe if I just don't think about it and I don't talk about it, like they're going to go away. And
Mhm.
then I started to realize, okay, well, like I just told one person and I already feel like 10 times better and a lot
Mhm.
lighter. And I felt a lot closer to the people that I was like really confiding in. So I feel like there's so many benefits to truly being vulnerable and opening up to people and confiding in your friends and in your family. Because yeah, I mean, who likes a perfectionist? Nobody, like everybody,
Someone is perfect. Yeah.
right? Everybody is dealing with something. And if you say that you're not dealing with something, or you're not struggling with something in your life, you're lying. Like there's no way. And I
Yeah.
feel
We're
like
always
that is
growing and learning. Mhm.
exactly. And that's what brings, I feel like that's what brings people closer together, is when they do talk about those things. What could you say to someone that is like just struggling to really acknowledge feelings like that? Like the place that I used to be in, that I'm sure a ton of people are in, where they don't really want to even acknowledge it and talk about it, or they're just trying to avoid and push forward. What would you say to those people?
Well, first, I just want to applaud your bravery. And, it's not easy when we try and, come into this authentic self and be vulnerable, but it just shows how courageous you were. And I think for me, or for someone who's like on this journey and they're starting, definitely, you have hopefully some people in your life that you feel like you can trust and that would be receptive, be responsive to you. So you could start with those people. And I definitely believe trust is something that's earned. And, I've experienced betrayal with friends and relationships. So definitely you think about like who it is that you can confide in and be open with. But also just recognizing those triggers, that certain things are going to elicit certain feelings in you and that there's nothing wrong with that. And to be aware of it, but and mindful, but also give yourself that grace and compassion that, hey, I'm a human being, that we all go through this. And to just kind of like, slow and steady wins the race. Just ease yourself into that because it might be difficult at first, but it definitely gets better with practice.
Yeah. And do you think just with like the avoiding part, that really like halts your healing processes, or like halts
Oh
like
yeah.
any sort of growth?
Oh yeah. I mean, what suppresses it, and then it's like we can just keep pushing down those feelings and that pain and suffering, whatever it is, but it's just gonna fester. And that's why I this is my theory. I think women live longer because we talk about our emotions and we get it out. That might not be true, but I do feel like it's so important. And to have your girlfriends and women
Yeah.
that support you. I could not have done what I've done with my Instagram page, and I'm sure like with you too, without having that support of other women and other people and the connections and the collaborations and all of those things. It's really lonely, I think at the top, sometimes those people that are all by themselves, I'd much rather be with people that are, at my level and my, headspace and mindset that want to do the same things rather than just, trying to do it all on my own because we are stronger together.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I feel like for me, I'm the happiest when I'm surrounded by those people that I really truly trust and like enjoy. And I feel
Yeah.
like they make all the difference. And having someone to like truly confide in and talk to about things, and being that person for other people, is so helpful to
Mhm.
just kind of like bounce off and like, not compare, but just like see that like everyone is dealing with something. It's just nice
Oh
to
yeah.
just know.
Absolutely. And especially
Yeah.
with the pandemic too. I mean, I don't care who you are, this has brought out different things. And in different people. I liken us all to like oranges and whatever, we're just kind of getting squeezed during this time, anytime during difficulties or trials in life. And it's just showing what we're made of and showing that, like what's inside of us. So I feel like that's for me, that's been a big part of it, is the spirituality. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a certain religion or things like that, but I think of it as knowing you're connected to like a higher source and to each other. It's this sense of humanity that binds us, and that we're not really so different. I mean, we might look different and things like that, but we all want the same thing. We all want to be loved. We all want to belong. We all want to feel safe, and that we are more alike than we are different.
Oh, I totally agree.
Thanks.
So we had a bunch of questions come in for you, and I'm really excited about these. Are really great questions. Okay, so I really don't know where to start. Okay. This one says, how do I take the first step, or I'm sorry, how to take the first step out of your comfort zone? It's a hard one.
I know, and that can mean so many different things. I think it can just be starting really, really, really small. It doesn't have to be something big.
Yeah, fair.
I'm trying to give like a personal example. Like, so for me, especially even before the pandemic, I've struggled with driving anxiety and not really going places, and then having to kind of get back into the world again. So I wouldn't recommend to myself to like necessarily drive on the San Francisco Bridge right now. I'll get there, but I'm like, okay, let me, like today I went to my friend's house, like driving places and then doing things like you can kind of scaffold it. And that's something that they do in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm actually a CBT coach, and that's something that you can kind of start getting yourself used to it. So like, let's say you have a fear of dogs, you're not going to necessarily go like pet sitting. You're going to look at a picture of a dog, and then you're going to, like say hi to one across the street or go to a dog park. I mean, so it's just taking those little baby steps where you're uncomfortable, but it's not to the point where you're like absolutely terrified. And it could be public speaking. That's another one too. I know a lot of people who struggle with that. Start small.
Yeah.
Don't go too big, or you might just go home at that point.
You're gonna be like, never mind.
Oh yeah, I've done
Terrible
that
idea. Okay, so this one says, how do I start saying no? It sounds so simple, but not for a people pleaser.
Oh yeah, I struggle with that, with boundaries. I think for me, what really helped is remembering that I wouldn't want someone to say yes to something if they didn't want to do it. So people wouldn't want me to do that, because it's like I wasn't really being truly authentic. So also another thing I've recognized, and I've read books about, I recommend the book Pace of Grace by Linda Kathleen Popoff, because she's this woman who basically burned herself out from saying yes too much. So we have to say yes to the things that light us up, to the things that bring us joy, or where we can feel like we're being of service to humanity. But we're gonna have to say no at some point to some things. And for me, it's about guarding my energy. If I say yes to everything, then like coming on with you today, Elaine, I just be like, hi, Elena. I mean, I have like no energy. I'd be like this blob of, this mess. So if you can recognize that you're going to have more to give other people, and people really don't want you to say yes if you don't want to do it. It's a balance, and it's moderation really in all things, but you just will start to feel it out, and your intuition's a big part of that. If you can listen to that and get quiet and still, you'll know what's right for you and what's not. But I definitely have a lot of passion for that person, because I've been there.
Yeah, no, I was definitely a people pleaser. I feel like there's still that part of me that does that. So I really relate to this question, and I found that I was just, becoming like really unhappy. And I was like, why am I so unhappy? Oh, it's because I'm doing all these things for other people, and I like have yet to do something for myself. Like I've yet to say something yes to myself. And I started to think, and maybe this is just case by case basis, but for me, I really felt like I'm saying yes to people that may not always want to say yes to me. And they would not say yes in reverse. Like in this situation, if I asked them to do this, they wouldn't. And that was like just that gut feeling of like, I'm saying yes to the wrong people and the wrong things. And that's kind of what got me out of that state of like trying to help and please everybody in my life. And I just started saying yes for me. So
yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Good for you. It's not easy. And that's another thing.
It's so hard.
It is. It does get, I mean, it gets better, but it's not easy in the beginning when you first started. And having those reciprocal relationships, I can't tell you how many friendships I have had that have been like one-sided. And now it's like, I don't even waste my time with it. It has to be an equal energy exchange. And like you said, if they wouldn't say yes to you, why are you saying yes to them? And really just setting those boundaries early on. But it is a process, but you will get better at it the more you do it.
Yes. This one says how to self-love yourself again after a heartbreak / multiple relationships.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Heartbreak is like, I think, one of the most painful things you can go through, and I've been through a lot. It just tears you up inside. I mean, it's gut wrenching. And it's hard not to just want to jump into another relationship and rebound because you're hurting. I think if you really can, there's even people that are heartbreak coaches. I was even kind of, yes, on Instagram. Yes. I'll have to send you some of them.
Yes, I have a lot of people that will need that.
Yes, and they actually have like freebies and things like that. I was even actually interested in heartbreak coaching. I have a program. If anyone's interested, I'll take them through that. I've taken myself through because I've been through that where it's like you have your self-worth is 0. You just don't really know where to go next. And you feel like you're never going to find someone again. That's the other thing, that you'll never find someone as great as this person. You're always going to be alone. All of those thoughts that are so common. But I think recognizing that, that is a shared human experience that we all go through. If you've known love, you've known heartbreak. And to give yourself that grace and compassion, and to reach out you don't have to suffer in silence. You can go out with a friend, you can reach out to a coach or a counselor or someone who has the tools to get you through it, because there are a lot of things. I think in the past I would just wallow in it, and I made this program, and there's like worksheets, activities, exercises that really get you back to where you were before you were just shattered in a million pieces. So knowing there's help out there, knowing that you're not alone, I think is huge, and that you will get through it. I promise you will. I've had that heartbreak where you've cried a million tears. You don't want to get out of bed and everything, but it does get better. The sun does come out again.
Yeah. I really like that. I feel like there were a few heartbreaks in my life that I probably could have used like someone like you to just talk to and like get your perspective and like help me through that. Because I mean, it really is like the lowest point that you could get to. And there's not really anything that like you think that you can do to get yourself out. But I really do think that like talking to somebody else is that first step of like getting you out of that funk and like feeling better about yourself. And, someone to remind you that like there is hope and there are other things that can make you happy in life that aren't that person. So I love that. I think that it's really important to just like, go seek somebody to just talk to. And you especially, like, everyone's gonna come to you after this episode. I already know
I hope so. Well, you too. I mean, you're so wise. You've had these experiences also. And I feel like for me, it's just seeing that there, like you said, it is possible to find hope. It doesn't have to be this way. And there's resources. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is you can't lose anything that's meant for you. There were so many times I felt like I lost out in a relationship or things didn't work out, but I really do believe that in a sense, there is that destiny that you are meant to be with whoever it is. And it's based on your energy level. So to not take it personally, like if a guy you think rejects you or dumps you, I've had that. And I was like, well, what's wrong with me? And then I realized, well, maybe my light is too bright. And I think that's what happens with a lot of women. They're intimidating, and some guys just can't handle it. So it's like, just weed them out. I'm like, thank you. Next.
Next.
Yeah.
That's funny. This question says, how does one really strengthen their confidence? I feel like we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think this is a great question.
It is a great question. And it can relate to self-love. I try to stay away from self-esteem because I think of that as like comparing yourself to other people. And that's why social media, I think, can be a trap. I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but sometimes I would feel better or worse about myself. And it was always kind of a losing game. So it's like, sometimes I'd see someone and be like, oh, she's so beautiful. I'm not like that. I don't feel good. Or I'm like, oh, I'm whatever. I think I'm prettier than she is. But then I still would feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
I think we're all connected. Whatever I would say about someone else, I'm saying about, them. I'm saying about whatever I say about someone else, I say about myself. If that makes sense. Because we're all just reflecting that light back at each other. So anything now I try to be more mindful of that. When I speak about someone, I'm thinking, this is how I really feel about myself. So I want to make sure I'm being kind and compassionate. But the confidence part, I think, is owning your power as a woman and knowing your strengths, knowing who you are. And sometimes that is going through difficult times, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's a journey of self-discovery and really self-awareness. But just, I think confidence too is just knowing like who you are and what you represent, like what your values are. And society is going to be telling you you're this or you're that and all those things. But once you know who you are and you're really clear on that, that is going to give you more confidence than getting a haircut or losing 10 pounds or whatever it is. Those things can be, helpful, but it comes more down to your relationship with yourself.
Yeah. I feel like those things are all temporary. And as long as like you're happy with yourself, that's what's really going to stick around.
Absolutely.
This one says, I'm dealing with a lot of rejection within my relationship, not sure where to go from here.
Is it a romantic relationship or?
I think so. That's how I read it.
Yeah.
Dealing with a lot of rejection within my relationship.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah. Leave the relationship.
Like you're big. What'd you say?
Leave.
Yeah, that was kind of my gut reaction too. You want someone who's your biggest fan, honestly. Yeah. I think who's just like your number one, like your cheerleader, your supporter. Not that they necessarily like have you like so high on a pedestal they can't reach you, but that they see the best in you, and that's really important. So if they're rejecting you, that's probably more about themselves than you, but it's obviously going to not make you feel good. So opening up the lines of the communication and finding out really maybe what's going on, and maybe like you said, exiting the relationship. I don't know. I mean, it depends, but it's harder, I think, sometimes when you're married, things like that.
Yeah, I know they're not specifying. I'm not sure. I mean, I take it as like just just a.
What would you say? How would you answer that?
I would say, well, okay, to be honest, this kind of sparked like an old relationship because I was in a relationship handful of years ago where I don't know if I would call it rejection, but I never felt good enough. And it wasn't like outright like you're ugly, like I don't want to look at, like nothing like that extreme, but a lot of like, Elena, did you see what this girl looked like on Instagram? Like she looks really good, and like emphasizing that. And so then in my head, I'm like, so I don't look good enough. I don't look like that. And that's what you're telling me. So I would have a lot of that. And so I feel like that maybe reject like some type of rejection. And that was a really hard, obviously, relationship to be in because I was constantly trying to prove myself. And I don't feel like in a relationship you need to be proving yourself at all. And like you said, like your counterpart should be your biggest fan, your biggest supporter, and love you for who you are. Especially if you're giving that to them, you should get that in return. So if this person is giving that, that love and affection to their significant other and they're facing like rejection, then I don't know if you should be in that relationship because that's not going to serve you. Like if it's not serving you, I think obviously that was like a handful of years ago and I was in a very different part of my life and very, naive, and I hadn't really gone through anything like that. So in the moment, I wasn't very, not necessarily smart, but I wasn't aware of, okay, like this probably shouldn't happen, like I just was just hanging out, just taking it. And if this ever happened to me now, like in my current relationship, then I would really, sit down, probably have a conversation with them, tell them how I'm feeling, which is like a really big thing that I've worked on is actually like expressing myself. If you come to the conclusion that they're not really hearing you, then, you're better than that and you can leave. And you're going to face, a lot of love in other places of your life. And I don't know. I feel like, life is too short to be in a relationship like that. So
I think that's perfect answer. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like when I read it, it's kind of, I mean, it's just sad. So, like, I don't want that for you, I don't want
Yeah.
that
You
for
deserve,
anybody.
but we teach people how to treat us. That's a big part of self-love. And it's not selfish. That's a big myth that self-love is selfish. I mean, it's really not. It's like showing people, hey, this is the expectations. I have a sense of self-respect. I expect that from you, and to not allow anything less, to just not accept it.
Yeah. How do I set healthy boundaries within my friendships?
That can mean different things in different ways. It really all comes down to protecting your energy. And for me, I'm an empath. I don't know if you are also, if you've heard of
Yes.
that, or
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. So it's a good thing. I mean, that's why you're so good at what you do, because it's just it comes very naturally to you to read people and to be able to really pull out what's, the most important. And so for someone like myself, who's an empath, it is guarding your energy and protecting your boundaries. And that might be saying no now and then, or it might be just saying, oh, hey, that hurts my feelings. And that can be really hard to do, especially if you're like person that avoids conflict, which I really don't like conflict. I've lost friendships, or I've let go of friendships that I probably could have held on to if we had a simple conversation, but I just avoided it. I just was like,
Yeah.
no, I'm just gonna let it go, because they done things, and whether they realized it or not, that hurt me. So I think if you, especially if it's a relationship or friendship that's important to you, to be really vulnerable and say, this is bothering me, or this hurt my feelings, or I took things this way, and then you can work things out. But the boundaries is just allowing really like how you let people talk to you and treat you. And for me, a lot of those times, in those relationships and friendships, I wasn't being treated well, and it was worth it to let it go. So you'd have to kind of find the balance, but
Yeah.
it is possible.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do one more. Okay, a breakup one. Started this year off with a breakup. Any advice on how to handle things moving forward?
Mm. Yeah, that's a rough one. I'm gonna even go on Instagram and find her. I think she's like the Heartbreak Nurse or something. I believe I would say follow her. Yeah,
The Heartbreak
yeah, the heart.
Nurse. That's great.
Yes, yes, she's amazing. Definitely give her a follow. She's a breakup mentor, and she helps women that have, they've gone through that experience and get on the other side of it, because it can take a lot longer. I mean, it can take years to heal. But if you have someone who's, talking about, and she just speaks to right where you are. You're feeling that vulnerability, you're feeling the pain and the insecurity and all of those things and uncertainty, that there is all of this hope, and that you can, have this life and a love that's so much better. But really
Yeah.
taking this opportunity to heal and to reflect and find out what your values are, what went well in the relationship, what didn't go so well, because a lot of times we're really blinded in the beginning to those red flags, and getting to know someone, taking that time. So I would definitely recommend that. Also, you can give me a follow, because
Yes.
like I said, I have a heartbreak, not to like do a plug, but I do have heartbreak coaching. That's something I do, and self-love. And I feel like just knowing that it is going to be okay, even though it doesn't feel like it is, you are going to get through it, and you're going to be happier. Really, it might not seem like it, but you will be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really liked what you said just about like kind of thinking back on the relationship itself and thinking like, because we do have blinders on, like whether we want to admit that or not, like in a relationship, you see that person in that best light possible because like, you have all these feelings for them and you think that they're the greatest. And,
Yeah.
maybe you end on good terms and you still think that they're a great person. But I think it's really important. And, you can say what you want to this too, but I feel like it's really important to sort of like sit and like reflect in that sad time and just think like, okay, like what are those things that really made me sad during this relationship that I don't want to happen in the next one?
Mhm.
Because I know with me, like that's exactly like how I felt like was able to move on from it because I was like, I was treated like X, Y, and Z, I wasn't listened to, I was this, I was that, like I definitely don't want that to happen again. What are things that like I can personally work on now so that when I, get into the next relationship, whenever that is, like, I am a better person and I'm a better communicator, and I can be able to say, like, to the next person, this is what I expect, like, and that sounds like, oh, that sounds so bad. Like, this is what I expect of you. But like,
Oh no, I know what you mean.
yeah, this is what I like really want. And this is how I communicate, and this and this and this. And I feel like it's important to sort of like maybe sit in those feelings and like think about and reflect about that past relationship. But that can also be hard because you're still in it. So I don't know if that was like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, healing is not linear also, which
Right.
is another part of
Right.
it. And time doesn't necessarily, I mean, it can help heal all, they say it heals all wounds, but there might still be pain later on, thinking about it, but it's not the same. You do distance yourself from it. And in those moments, especially right after a breakup where you're really raw and vulnerable, it's okay to miss that person. It's okay to still love that person. It might not mean they're the right person for you though. And to remember, oh yeah, they did do those things that wasn't really aligned with my values or made me feel good or whatever it may be, but to really see the whole picture of the person and not just the idealized version or the infatuation that you have, but who they really are and maybe the qualities you want to take in the next relationship, the things that you did like. But I would definitely recommend, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or read the book Eat, Pray, Love, but that was like my Bible after so many breakups.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I need to rewatch that. I loved that. Yes.
And the book is even better. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the advice and the answers to all of our listeners' questions.
Thank you for the good questions.
Yeah, thank you everyone who sent in. Hopefully you liked our responses, or Julia's responses, really.
Oh,
So I wanted to ask you, just before we wrap up, how can people contact you, get in touch with you, and potentially like get coaching and counseling from you, all of that good stuff?
absolutely. And I was going to say thank you so much just for having me on. I wish that when I was going through all this, in my late teens, early 20s, I had someone like you because it would have
Aw.
saved me a lot of heartbreak and suffering to have all this wisdom and these amazing guests. So thank you. I'm just so honored to be here today.
Oh my gosh, thank
Yes.
you.
So if they want to get in touch with me, I am on Instagram. That's really where I spend most of my time if I'm not working with my clients. And I have a couple of different offerings. I do, like I said, I have the heartbreak coaching, which is really good. If you are, just getting out of a relationship and you're on that healing journey. Also, I have one about attracting love. These are all new programs that I'm going to be offering soon and advertising. And then I have a 12-week radical self-love program that I've taken clients through. But I'm going to be in a couple weeks announcing a radical self-love and anxiety program for people that are struggling with both of those things. And I do have a free workshop on IG coming up, and it is, let me double check the date, the 19th. So it's next Wednesday at 11 a.m. with another coach that I love and who's a dear friend, and she's a self-love coach also. So hopefully everyone can tune into that. And yeah, that's just some of the things I'll be offering.
That's awesome. Yeah, you are amazing. And I'm so glad that I came across your page, because honestly, like, please follow her. I will link everything, and I will link your website and all of that. But please follow her on Instagram, because I feel like it's such a safe space, and you're just like very like comforting and so helpful just with all of this. So this was so nice. Thank you so much. Like, I feel like I got clarity. I feel like our listeners got clarity today. And we just learned a lot from you. So thank you so much.
I got clarity too, just basking in your light. You are just so beautiful inside and out. And if any of my followers are watching too, I was going to say, please follow you. I was even telling one of my former clients about you because, I just am so inspired by this work that you're doing. And it really is just what this next generation of young women need. So I just appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you. All right. Well, yeah, be sure to follow Julia on everything. And like I said, I will link everything in the show notes. You can check her out, reach out to her, DM her, and just, just learn from her, just like we did today. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, sweetie.